Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Blueprints podcast by Symbiotic. Today, very happy to have Dmitry Gusakov, tech lead on community staking at Lido.
I believe that decentralization is one of the strongest points of Ethereum compared to the other networks, to the other protocols, to the other decentralized system that we have in place. Any significant stake done in an inappropriate way, done in a centralized way, will devalue this block space. So let's not devalue this block space. Let's keep this block space super robust, super secure, super decentralized by using Ethereum aligned technologies that on one hand give all of the cool features that you want, all of these things that you are looking for, while keeping Ethereum decentralized at the same time. How can you combine the primitive that on one hand has nothing to do with decentralization? You add this ability to mint as the ETH, and by adjusting this ratio, you have an effective control over decentralization, which in total makes Lido I believe, the most advanced staking product on the market.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Blueprints podcast by Symbiotic. Today, very happy to have Dmitry Gusakov, tech lead on community staking at Lido. How are you doing, Dmitry?
Oh, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. That was a pretty unscheduled thing, not gonna lie. But I'm really happy that this ECC week is so packed, and we're ending up this ECC week with an episode of a Symbiotic podcast.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that EFCC in Cannes, at least is my opinion, is not that bad of an idea. Cannes is like a human-sized city. You can do a lot of things by walking. It's actually quite convenient to just walk from one event to the other and do BD on the way. That's not something you can do in Dubai. So I'm quite happy as a French person to have more conferences in France. I was very sad to see EFCC go to Brussels last year. Dimitri, can you introduce yourself before we dive a bit deeper into things?
Yeah, sure. I think you did a fair introduction of myself, but for those of you guys who want to learn slightly more, I'm doing smart contracts development, architecture, and also product design, protocol design, specifically for the part of Lido that is responsible for permissionless validation. And hopefully we will scale this aspect to the whole validation in Lido, to the whole modules. But for now, it's community staking module. It's the first ever permissionless module in Lido where people can run validators without asking permissions, without KYC, and they can do it at home. And if they do it at home, they get specific benefits for it.
Really cool. We'll dive into this a bit deeper later, but very interesting stuff. Let's start with some rapid fire questions. We like to do this on the Blueprints podcast. I think it's really fun. What aspects of the industry frustrates you the most?
I believe social consensus. That's the most frustrating part.
What's the biggest misconception about staking?
Oh, the biggest misconception about staking is definitely slashing.
If you were not working in crypto, which industry would you be a part of?
I would be a part of some high-tech industry. I'm not quite sure, but it definitely should be something about development and about cutting-edge technology.
Nice. AI maybe?
Maybe, who knows?
What's the biggest L you've taken on chain? What's the biggest loss?
I believe it was investing in Polygon tokens. I lost about $5,000.
Damn. I want you to talk about your background and talk about how you found crypto in your journey as a young professional, and what's basically what appeal did crypto have to you, and what led you to start working for Lido?
Yeah, sure. So the story starts simple. One day I had a very long, not a very long, but a 6-hour trip from coastline back to my home city with a friend of mine who had shared at the very beginning of the trip that, hey man, we are currently working at this new crypto project. I knew almost nothing about crypto except for the fact that there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, and Ethereum is slightly more advanced than Bitcoin. That was my level of knowledge back in the day. So he told me that, hey, we are building this staking protocol, and it's so cool, la 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 la. But I'm not the person who's going to say, oh, yeah, right. Okay, now I need to understand. I need to dive deeper. So I started asking questions like what staking is. And he briefly explained how consensus mechanism work, what staking is. Then I was, okay, and what you guys are doing on top. He was like, we are building a pool, and not just pool, but a liquid staking pool, which is apparently Lido. And then we delve deeper, 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 and deeper into what smart contracts are, how do they work, how this all these interactions in between two chains work. So after this 6 hours, I believe he was super exhausted by my questions, but I was super inspired by the ideas and by simplicity of smart contracts on one hand, and by how powerful it is to have a code that is written on the blockchain that cannot be changed, that is a law. So this concept of a code as a law inspired me like incredibly. And after half a year, me and my team, we quit our traditional, not like directly finance, but traditional development job. And we opted in for crypto. We joined Lido, and for 3.5 years already, we are part of Lido. And I believe we're super happy to be here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you fell in love with like the I guess like programmable part of like the blockchain and like uh but there are different like protocols that have smart contracts. Like why did you choose Lido? Maybe you could have been like you could have fell in love with like DeFi and then go and worked for like I don't know like Curve or like Uniswap.
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, I learned first about Lido, then I did a bit of a research, and at that moment in time, it turned out that Lido was one of the most successful so-called no longer startups. I believe it was still a bit of a startup back in 2022, but they were gradually transitioning to a big player. And I've decided that, okay, if I want to start with in the field where I know nothing about, it's better to be a part of an experienced team rather than a part of a team where neither you nor your teammates know anything. So my choice was pretty biased here. I've decided to go with a big player to find help and support. But as time progresses, now the roles has been changed, and now I'm happy to help Lido to advance. And when Lido was helping me at the beginning, now I'm helping Lido, and
Nice.
I'm really happy about
So
that.
so how many people were at Lido when you joined?
I believe it was 30 people or maybe even less.
Nice. When was that?
At the very, very beginning, like in January 2022, I believe we started talking at 2021, and at the very beginning of 2022, we joined the team.
Amazing. And okay, and so before joining Lido, like when people were explaining everything about like staking and so on, like you must have had like some, I guess, like preconceived ideas about like staking and maybe decentralization as a whole. Like what changed like when you were like initially looking into this and when you started to work and like I guess like the all of the experience you've gotten to work in the field, like have these like preconceived ideas like been disproven or challenged?
Oh, yeah. So when I was just joining, I knew about the concept of decentralization, but this concept wasn't something that was waking up me at night. I was thinking, okay, you need decentralization, and Lida has a pretty sustainable model. They have professional operators, cool, they have a lot of them, so they diversify stake. That's a good approach. But the more I delve deeper into this topic, the more I learned about the other protocols and competitors like Rocket Pool, for example, or on the other hand, like centralized players like big node operators that we have in space. I figured out that it is more nuanced. And while on one hand, you can have like a simple model where you simply distribute between big players, but why then small players are aside? And living with this thought for about a year and a half, I came up with with the idea that we need a new project, and this idea of adding the ability for small players, for home stakers to be in Lido to validate as a part of the protocol was in Lido for a long time, but no one was brave enough to take this challenge. And that's why we took this challenge. So my understanding of staking transferred from not staking, but decentralization, from something like, okay, that's a good concept, to a really hands-on experience in the trenches, fighting with both social pressure, with the consequences of that, because you cannot again do it in a perfect way. So the idea is to find this reasonable balance, and finding this reasonable balance make you think about it more and more and more. So essentially, I believe that decentralization and even at the current level of decentralization of Ethereum is one of the strongest points of Ethereum compared to the other networks, to the other protocols, to the other decentralized system that we have in place. We're still not there. There's still more to improve, definitely, both from the core protocol side and from the application layer, from staking protocols like Lido, for example. That's why we keep developing, we keep investing in community staking module, we keep encouraging people to validate from home, for example. We keep onboarding non-professional operators, again, via community staking modules, so that we will have the full diversity, not just a bunch of professional players, but all variety from very beginning to the very end, all represented at Lido, so that decentralization of Ethereum wouldn't be just a thing that we have in the moment, but would become a self-sustainable thing that even when you stop investing and doing some specific efforts to support it, would still exist and would maintain itself.
What is, in your opinion, like the one thing that made Lido so successful? Because like, like maybe like liquid staking could have been like a three-player dominant market, but the reality is that it's a one-player dominant market, and Lido is like has completely won at this point the liquid staking game. What made like the success?
I want to be completely honest with you. I don't have an explicit answer to this question. That's a bit of a mystery. I might have a guess, and my guess is that in Lido, we saw a combination of two things: amazing user experience, which is very important for users, combined with a very robust and Ethereum aligned mission.
Mm-hmm.
So while other protocols, some of them might have offered incredible decentralization effort and incredible missions to decentralize Ethereum to maximum with not that great user experience, the others might have offered a maybe even better user experience than in Lido, I'm not going to lie, but with no mission or with a mission that is not aligned with Ethereum. So I believe that this specific combination and a very rapid execution that folks did in Lido at the early stages resulted in the current market position. And I still believe that Lido offers one of the best user experiences in terms of how you stake, in terms of what you get, in terms of liquidity, in terms of usage of a token. And on the other hand, all this stake is backed by arguably the best node operator set that you can find in crypto, especially now.
I'm curious, like because like what you said is that one of the reason potentially like why like Lido was successful is because it was better aligned with like Ethereum's vision. Like considering like how like crypto's culture has evolved, do you think Lido would be like as successful if it were to be launched like today and like like everybody goes back to like the starting line? Do you think it would have the same success?
If we would imagine that now, like today, there's like no staking market and staking is just launching today, I want to be honest with you. I'm not sure that people do care that much about the mission today. Again, this is my assumption. I cannot know for sure, but what we see on the market right now is that for over the last maybe 2 years, maybe year and a half, people are heavily hunting for incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the market movement that we've seen over the past years is mostly because of the where can I get more incentives, where can I get higher APR. And we still see that a lot of people, like a significant market share is still in Lido, which means that not all of the people went crazy about that. However, if launched today, I believe that Lido wouldn't be a major player without any like changes, without the original value proposition. So Ethereum aligned with a good user experience. So that's why we are adding more features to Lido. That's why we are trying to keep Lido up to date. And I personally work on this Ethereum alignment side, on the node operator side, but there's much more to it. You've probably heard that about a week ago, maybe slightly more already, I'm not quite sure. Dual governance was implemented on mainnet, which makes Lido one and only DAO of a meaningful size on Ethereum with this veto system where now LDO holders cannot make unilateral decisions. And even if for some terrible reason the malicious vote will be about to pass, STEVE holders will have the ability to say no and to exit the protocol, so which is basically called a rage quit mechanism, which has never been implemented at scale. On the other hand, again, we have CSM, we have efforts to make validator set better. But that's not enough, right? So we've talked about incentives and the ability to form these incentives to do whatever you want. And that's why on the horizon, we have Lido V3 staking vaults, a new primitive that will be an addition to the original concept of Lido that we are trying to perfect. And this addition would allow people, would allow capital, allow node operators and capital providers to basically go as crazy as they want with incentives, with restaking, with whatever they want, without necessity to align it with the others, because each and every vault will be an isolated thing while still having access to the liquidity of STE. So I believe that if we take moment today where we have no ST vaults, Lido might be not that successful. But if we move to October, where ST Vault is going to be launched on mainnet, and we again launch everything from scratch, I still believe that Lido has a very significant chance of getting almost the same, if not bigger, market position because of the flexibility and because of the level of perfection that has been achieved in the core protocol and in this additional primitives.
Interesting. One thing also, like, that's, I guess, a big topic when talking about Lido is like the people flooding that Lido is like is hurting like Ethereum's decentralization, and that Lido can be like a threat for Ethereum decentralization. Like, do you see like all of these like efforts as a way to combat like these arguments and like combat these fears and say like no, like Lido is gonna get better, and Lido is going to like is not going to get in Ethereum's way, you know? Do you think that like Lido could still like could be a threat if like it never evolved?
Oh, no, I don't think so. And the efforts that we are taking in Lido are not directed towards combating something. I personally believe that even if we remove all this community part and we will keep Lido in the original form with a limited set of curated node operators, and we compare the situation where there is Lido in the market and the situation where there is no Lido in the market, Ethereum is better off having even a default version of Lido just because of how the mechanism is made and how decentralized Lido actually is. But why we are not declaring victory here and why we keep improving that? Because we personally believe that there is room for improvement, that Lido can become more decentralized. And since decentralization is a spectrum, it's not like a lamp that either lit or not, either green or red. No, it's a spectrum. And the further we can move down this spectrum to more decentralization while maintaining robustness of the protocol, while serving the best rewards, the best performance for STEVE holders, the better. And that's what we are trying to do. So again, answering your question, no, it's not a counteraction. It's a way of perfection, of making something that is already good even better.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And you are working on the community staking module, which aims to make the core vision is to make Lido as decentralized as possible, extend the validator set. But also, like, one of the reason like Lido was successful, as you mentioned right before, is like the a very good operator set, like very good operators. You don't let anybody in the set. You don't used to let anybody in the set that didn't like reach like a specific like milestone, right? Do you feel like opening up the sets to like an infinity potentially like of validators could like hurt the performance of Lido and hurt its market share?
That's actually a very good question. And since, as you've mentioned, at the very beginning, Lido indeed was based on an absolutely curated set. And back in the day, like 4 years ago, when Lido was initially, maybe like 5 years ago already, man, all of the Ethereum validation and even validation in crypto in general, if we take even other proof of stake networks, was way younger than it is now. And validating from home, being a solo staker back in 2020 was a hard thing. So there were no available hardware. You have to do something on your own, like take your old PC or take your nuke and assemble it on your own. All of this software was pretty young. There were bugs and issues. So that's why professional operators were required at that moment, because they were arguably the only players in the market actually capable of handling all of these issues. But now in 2025, we are at the stage where I personally run 18 validators, Ethereum validators from home with CSM using DApp node, which I just unpacked. I've installed, okay, not gonna lie, I've installed Eve Docker on it, which requires a bit of a knowledge, but a minimal one. I've installed Fresh OS, Eve Docker, and that's basically it. Through his several comments, I got all the performance optimization, automatic upgrades where I need them. And my performance right now is on par with the best professional operators. And if we look at CSM in general, and it has been live for 8 months already, average performance of the module is more or less equal. It's like 0.06% less than average effectiveness of the whole Ethereum network, which means that all the users of the network has matured and now are really capable of demonstrating this good performance. And on the other hand, there is definitely a bunch of security and safety mechanisms that were not available for implementation within smart contracts back in the day, because again, Ethereum and the Ethereum virtual machine has evolved. So now we have this strike system, we have this performance oracle, and all of the stuff that helps ensure that any significantly bad performing players would be gradually removed from the set, while the others will be kept there. And all of these technologies, they were not available back in the day. And I believe that it was a correct decision to go with the simplest approach, to rely on a trusted operators for the beginning, and then transform and then add community operators. And I believe that was the initial plan. And if you will scroll through old talks by Vasily, even though he might have said that, okay, he believed that most of the Ethereum will be controlled by professional operators. And I still think that we are in the situation where most of Ethereum is actually controlled by professional operators. He also always mentioned that the plan always was to start with professionals and then open up to everyone. And that's where we are now, because the technology has matured, because people has matured, because Ethereum has matured. And now I don't see any threat, I don't see any problem in opening up validator set gradually to more and more participants, while keeping a close eye on it for sure with the tools that are available at the moment.
Yeah, going back to the competitiveness between like professional validators and like solo stakers, for example, like, okay, maybe now like with like there's a bit less activity on the L1, like the delta between the two may be very slim, but also like with time we've seen like we've seen like if Ethereum mature, we've also seen it evolve. Like at the very beginning, like we didn't know like there was like so many like MEV opportunities, and now it's something that you can do as a validator. Like I think like thanks for like timing games that can drastically like improve the performance is something that was like find out like that was discovered like it was researched by the Ethereum Foundation like 2 years ago. It started to be implemented like a year and a half ago. Like, and maybe in the future will be like pre-confirmations. Like, so, like how does like the Ethereum L1 like keep up with like these evolutions that could potentially give like more and more hedges to professional validators? Like, and how does it like prioritize like decentralization?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned timing games weirdly alongside with MEV and pre-confirmation. So let's break it down. First, MEV and the proposer builder separation is a thing that is available for anyone. Doesn't matter if you're a professional or not, you can connect to all of the relays, you can have MEV boost sidecar, boom. Pre-confirmations, if you are a part of a big pool like Lido, for example, and then within Lido, it is allowed to use this or that pre-confirmation technology because this technology is mature enough. So the only reason people are frequently asking me like, why are you not allowing to use this particular relay? And the answer is like only two options. This relay is either dead for MEV or is not mature enough, and we are not quite sure that it is basically safe to use it. Same applies for this pre-confirmation technologies and stuff like that. So again, with pre-confirmations as a solo staker, you can opt in the same way using same sidecars as professionals. Timing games is a different thing, but timing games is not the thing that is desired for Ethereum, to be honest. It's a side effect of a scale. It's a side effect of a very advanced infrastructure where you get a sort of a benefit for you, where you basically, for those who are not aware what timing games is, it's very simple. Ethereum slot is 12 seconds, and you have 4 second, like 3 slots within it, 4 seconds duration, during which you have to perform certain duties. And the block proposal duty, like actual either building of a block or getting block from relay, is within one of these 4 second slot. And the longer you wait till the end of the slot, the longer you ask MEV relays for bits, the higher reward you get. But it creates a problem for the network. It creates a problem that if you reveal the block at the very, 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 very end of this 4 second slot, you create problem for the other validators who should attest this block in the next 4 second window. So you're basically stealing a bit of a time from the other participants. And this is what professional operators turned out to be capable of doing. I cannot say that it is prohibited, but I believe that with enshrined proposer builder separation, which is EIP 7732, which folks are currently actively working on, and I'm also involved somewhat, at least in discussions of this topic, I believe that might solve this problem with timing games and remove this edge that professional operators might have. So answering your question, the only real edge that professional operators might have right now is actually by hurting a bit the other players in the network, which is not very healthy situation in my personal opinion, while all of the other opportunities for additional value extraction, again, like MEV, pre-confirmations, and so on, they are well available for any type of validator, any type of node operator, no matter if you are a large professional or if you're just a home staker.
Yeah, but yes, indeed. But can you really blame like the professional validators? They are managing their customer stake. Their customers always want like cutting edge performance, and like if they don't perform, like if they don't like continue to improve their performance, they will just like lose stake and lose market share to other professional operators. Like, is it really like their fault? Like to just like try to like take the most out of the protocol, like like a public blockchain is based on like incentive mechanisms, so it's just normal for like a validator to try to take the most out of these incentives.
Yes, and I'm not blaming professional operators. So even though I said that you are technically stealing, at the same time, you're technically not, because the allowed windows are 4 seconds, 4 seconds, and 4 seconds. So if you are capable of moving like very close to the end of it, well, okay, I would say you've utilized the mechanism in a protocol in a best way that you can do it. Maybe it's not the best way for the others, but still you are within the rules of the protocol. And I'm not here to blame professional operators for that, and I understand why they move towards this direction. But at the same time, I believe that one of the greatest features of Ethereum is being incredibly neutral, and the desire to fix such an edge cases that appeared due to the old design, replace it with a better design where these edge cases would be somewhat eliminated. And yeah, so even though right now professional operators might have an edge, but let's be honest with it. According to the analysis that has been performed by multiple researchers, yes, you can get an edge with this timing games. Is it a big edge? I'm not quite sure about that. And the other thing is that currently community stakers and home operators represent around 6%, I believe, of Lido protocol, and this percentage will gradually increase, but it doesn't mean that all of the professional operators will be immediately eliminated, meaning that majority of Lido is still made out of professional operators, which also reflects the real picture that we have on Ethereum. So you cannot have the largest protocol with a distribution radically different from the rest of the network. So Lido is getting closer and closer to the network. We hope to be better than the network in terms of decentralization on average, but still you cannot be ages away from that. You will still be somewhat similar. So professional operators, they are still in Lido. They are still very welcome. And if they can utilize this or that opportunity, unless it is strictly prohibited by the protocol rules, which might be the case, well, they can do that, and STF holders will benefit from it. And at the same time, what STF holders will benefit from is a protection from, say, major regulation flaws. Because most of our professional node operators, by our, I mean our operators on Ethereum, we all live on Ethereum, and our operators on Ethereum, they are concentrated in Europe and United States. And we are all seeing what's happening in the news. So today, one said one thing, the other one said the other thing, policy had changed, and it might cause a significant friction on Ethereum. At the same time, home stakers, they are way less affected by that. So having a meaningful portion of people maybe not performing like at the very top edge of the possible performance, but way more resilient, way more decentralized, way more protected from all this regulation changes, even from natural disasters. I mean, come on, we had this blackout in Spain, even though it was not a natural disaster, but it was a bit of a disaster for me personally. I live in Barcelona, and 12 hours, no electricity whatsoever, no mobile connection, no nothing. But has it affected Lido or CSM significantly? No, only a few operators who are in Spain were affected, while others in France or in Germany or in Asia or in South America were not affected. And that's the beauty of decentralization. That's the beauty of having different types, even though not all of them are showing the best in the world performance.
Yeah, and then like maybe a professional operator that can rotate keys like from one location to the other like quite fast to mitigate these blackouts. Then that would be nice to you.
Yes, for sure. And I believe almost all professional operators who are like significant players in Ethereum market right now, they have a significant redundancy. Oh, so yeah, that's definitely a benefit for sure. But at the same time, home operators, again, unless they represent like, I don't know, 90% of the protocol and all concentrated for some reason in one city. So they mitigate it in a different way. While you can have a backup setup, you can have a separate car if your first car has broken. At the same time, you can have a big fleet of taxis. And then if one of them broke, your fleet is still operational and you can easily repair this car. You can even do it slowly. While if you only have one car, you need to do something with this particular car.
Hmm. And we're talking a lot about like professional stakers versus like solo stakers, home stakers, but I think this ties very well into like the CSM and its evolution, like V1 to V2. Can you talk a bit about like these design changes and like what went into like the design thinking of V1 and like why you try what you're trying to mitigate with V2?
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm happy that you asked that. As well as Lido protocol itself started simple to add more features later, but to be on the market at the moment where it is needed, we followed the same approach with CSM. So instead of trying to squeeze all of the possible features into version 1, make it perfect from day 1, we've decided to do the opposite. We determined a very essential features that are essential both for users and the protocol. So version 1 of CSM is super simple to use. I mean, it is no different from vanilla staking. You just need to set different parameters in two different places. That's pretty much it. All of the interactions with the protocol are done via UI in the same way that you just stake your ETH on stake.lido.fi. But now you also upload validator keys and now you run validators. Perfect. However, in this first version, several pieces were missing. Some of them were missing because Ethereum protocol was not ready. So for example, execution layer triggerable withdrawals were not here and they only arrived in Pectra. So there were no chance to add this additional security feature. The other things like differentiated node operator types were not added from day one because we had a very limited understanding of what people actually looking for. Are people actually looking for different conditions or they're just looking for good conditions? What would be the natural distribution in between professional and non-professional operators within CSM? Because even though it is called community staking module at its core, it is a permissionless module and we have a bunch of professional operators also there. So the main idea of CSM version 2 is to allow for customization and modularity. Customization in terms of which type of node operator gets what. So if you are a professional operator, you still get good conditions because you provide bond. But this is like the baseline conditions, which everyone can get, and you as a professional can also get. But if you provide a bit more information about yourself, I'm not speaking KYC here, by the way.
Hmm.
I'm speaking information that you've been active on Ethereum. You've been running validators on a testnet, maybe, or maybe on a mainnet. You've been collecting POAPs. You've been active. So you can prove that you are a likely individual that runs validators from home. If you're able to do it via identification system that we've recently introduced, you can get additional but limited benefits so that you will feel slightly better, you will get slightly more rewards, the performance threshold for you will be slightly loosened. And we understand that the majority of the module would still be this permissionless operators with the default conditions. So the module will be safe, everything will be fine, both for stakers. But those who deserve this special treatment, they will get it. And the second thing is modularity. So modularity is very simple. We realized that, and we realized it only after we released version 1. This is the thing you cannot know beforehand. We realized that CSM turned out to be a very popular product. And a lot of different protocols, technology providers like DVT providers, for example, are willing to build something similar or something on top of it. And we've decided to modify the way how CSM works so that you can attach either an entry gate, so a simple curation mechanism, if you want to give special conditions to a node operators, again, because of a certain criteria. I don't know, this specific address is an experienced user within your specific protocol, and that's why you want to give them slightly better conditions or a bit of a bonus. Or on the other hand, I don't know, maybe give them a better conditions in one place, but worse conditions in the other. So you know that these operators are professional, so they can live with a tighter performance threshold, while they want to provide slightly less bond, again, because they are professionals. Or you can even go crazy and build a whole full-featured product on top of CSM, which would solve problems of the other protocols that they've been trying to solve while integrating. We all know that all DeFi right now is built out of sandwiches. You start here, you go to one protocol, then to the other, then to the. And as we've discussed at the beginning, people are now looking for a place where they can come and get everything at once, where they can get all this sandwich perfectly served for them without necessity to think how it actually works. So with the extensions to CSM, we now allow for this sandwich to be built on top of CSM for the sake of the best user experience, for the sake of the best rewards for the node operators, again, either professionals or community stakers. So that's the evolution of CSM. We started low with the essentials, that there should be bond and rewards should be good and users should love using it. It should be simple. We maintain that, and now we add the special sauce of different treatments and modularity.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think it ties back to like my question earlier about like maintaining market share and like allowing that sandwich to exist, like just like makes it like much easier. Do you think like philosophically like users have like lost like the like the average crypto user has lost its tie with like the infrastructure, like like I'm sure like in the early days and like as a solo staker, like you can probably like you can feel the network, with your machines like running in your living room, like you see that you hear the transaction going through, like you feel the heat of the blockchain in a way. Like, do you think like people are starting to take like infrastructure for granted?
Exactly. I believe that's actually the main problem. So we've talked a lot with you about attracting more operators. And one may think that, oh, these operators, they do exist. We just need to attract them, or they're sitting here doing nothing, which is not true. The reality is that people are getting further and further and further away from understanding how crypto works, what powers the network they are using. They becoming more of a one-click users, or even if they're not one-click users, even if they're deep into Ethereum. When I speak with people who are, I don't know, who've participated in Ethereum ICO, for example, and I tell them, hey, you can actually run validators from home and you can help the network. And some of them are so surprised because for most of them, the validation being done by professionals is taking as granted. So that's the option, that's the default option. And they are so surprised that they can actually do that. And that's actually, well, they know that it is beneficial, but for some reason, it is so surprising for them. So yes, people are getting further away from understanding infrastructure. And with CSM, one of the main efforts that we do off chain is not just developing a product that is appealing. And again, this was one of the things that we realized on the go. I wouldn't say that we realized it on its own on the go, but the importance of it has become more and more and more apparent as we progressed. That even if you have the best product in the world that is super easy to use, that is super appealing, if you have no users, and if you cannot convince users that they should use it, it will be a failure for the product. And with Ethereum, with home staking, the main problem is that this is not what you see in all of the podcasts. This is not what you see across the internet. It's not what you hear even from people who are long in crypto, that you could actually do that. So we spent enormous amounts of time on educational efforts, on showing people how easy it is. We have a long educational series of like different opinions from different users, including myself, on how Ethereum validation works, why it is important to be home staker, like 300,000 ways how to become home staker, how you can run your setup, where you can get yourself hardware, why it is so cool. We host events. I've just arrived from Solo Stakers Guild that we've hosted during EFCC, and I've seen so many people, and a lot of them, some of them were vanilla Ethereum stakers from Genesis, but some of them joined because of the efforts that products like CSM do to encourage people. And now they live with it. Now they feel these transactions flowing in on their machine somewhere in their living room or in the bedroom. I don't know where they prefer to have them. So this is also about mission of keeping Ethereum users educated and understand what Ethereum is, and not letting Ethereum transform from a cyberpunk to a basic, I don't know, banking service that, well, you never know what happens when you actually pay with your bank card, right? But with Ethereum, you can actually know it, and not just know it, but you can be a part of the things that happen after someone submits transaction. So that's also a very cool part of home staking and home validation.
No, absolutely. Do you think this ties back to like, people are more distant from the infrastructure, so they take everything for granted, and in their head, like block space becomes fungible. Like, oh, a transaction on Ethereum, like for me, is the same as a transaction on Base. Transaction on Base is almost instantaneous, so why would I transact on Ethereum? Like maybe the distance from infrastructure and that like distance from like the core thesis, the core ethos of crypto is what's like making it like lose its way, because like people are prioritizing like convenience over decentralization.
Yes, people do prioritize convenience over decentralization, and well, I'm a weirdo in this crypto world, but I personally, if I have like any assets on L2s, this mostly for, I don't know, some airdrop farming or stuff like that, I still use Ethereum because I know how secure Ethereum is. And for the regular user, it's super hard to explain the difference between transaction on L2 and transaction on L1. But luckily, thanks to, again, to the efforts that are taking, not just by projects like CSM, but by all of the major players in crypto, all of the major DeFi protocols. I'm not speaking centralized exchanges. I'm not quite sure about what efforts they are taking, because for them, most of the transactions do not even exist. They have it off chain. So for the DeFi protocols, they are putting a lot of effort into actually explaining people why it is important, what's the difference in security. But still, if we will proceed with just explaining people, I don't think that Ethereum would ever succeed. That's why I like this rollup centric roadmap with the based rollups and with the interoperability in between rollups, so that users can get user experience they are willing to get while still benefiting from underlying security. And again, we can draw parallel lines here with CSM. Vanilla validation is the holy grail. Solo staking is the holy grail of validation. When you have your own 32 ETH, you have your own machine, you do not interact with any protocol whatsoever. That's theoretically the best way to stake. However, it comes with downsides. In the same way that transactions on Ethereum comes with downside compared to the transactions on L2s. So what we did in Lido is we've simplified this experience. We've added the ability to have less than 32 ETH, yada, 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 yada. And so do L2s. However, Lido and the mechanisms that are in Lido, again, including this dual governance, the most robust approach to security of the protocol, they put all like this whole product very tight together with Ethereum, leaving almost no wiggle room here. While L2s right now are, I would say, way loosely connected to Ethereum, it can be improved, and I believe that it should be improved so that at the end of the day, regular user of Ethereum, which is the majority of crypto, would eventually not think about infrastructure. However, we will have a core of power users, and not just professional operators, but real users, real people passionate about that. And as I said on one of the talks on FCC this week, is I personally believe that the future where I want to live in is the future where Ethereum validation and being a part of Ethereum infrastructure is a big hobby. Is a hobby like buying yourself Lego, or like fixing your car or improving your car or any stuff like that. And if we will see around that, being a homestaker, running a validator and helping this cyberpunk future, while again, most of the users do not modify their cars, right? They just buy it in dealership, they sell it back to dealership, that's it. But some people go crazy about it. And and I believe we should see the same about Ethereum validation. Most of the people, yes, they will see crypto, they will see Ethereum as a regular user, they will never go crazy about it, they will use it, and they should have the best experience. While some will definitely go crazy about it, will be at the core of the system, ensuring that the system operates according to the initial values and is still safe for those regular users.
Absolutely. And talking about like the Ethereum like modular vision like that you mentioned, uh, modular vision like by definition like talks about like a lot of different stacks like to the infrastructure, and by like a lot of different layers, like it also comes like a lot of different like modules of the blockchain infrastructure that can or cannot be decentralized. Right now L2s are just not decentralized. Do we really envision like a future where like everything on the layer on top of Ethereum is as decentralized as like the core layer, and like what is like a good middle ground between like decentralization and centralization of these layers on top?
So I believe if we will succeed with this based rollups, I believe that underlying idea of the based rollups where the sequencer is inherently decentralized and it operates through pre-confirmations, the settlement happens through pre-confirmations on the core layer. If L2s will follow this like basic guidelines and basic premises, then yes, I believe it should be good. And L2s and sequencers do not need to be that decentralized as the core network. It will be crazy. Why would you need several layers with the same level of decentralization? No. But you are absolutely right that right now most of the sequencers are centralized. And I believe this is a well discussed problem, and we even have this L2 beat where you can see like the stages. But what we see is that we see more and more L2 rollups, for example, AdStack, who are launching as a stage 2 rollups from day one with a decentralized sequencer, even using ZK. So we are progressing towards that direction. And again, with the based rollups, with this concept, I believe that having some sort of a standards that I wouldn't say enforce, but would promote
Mm-hmm.
a required level of decentralization of sequencers of different parts of L2s, L3s, whoever else know what layer would it be, is essentially good. And this is the thing that allows you to understand like if this rollup is actually worth using or not. If you have some sort of a standard or some sort of approach, you see that okay, this is a based rollup and it operates with a decentralized sequencer. Okay, cool, I can trust that. This rollup is built on a technology I have no idea of. They've never disclosed their source code. Their sequencer is centralized. Well, then maybe I should not use it. Again, we can talk about it for ages. Who would educate users? How would they know about that? But I genuinely like to see this overall movement towards towards values of Ethereum, even on L2, so that we still stick to the premise of decentralization. And even though not all of the steps brings us directly to the final point, but we are moving in the right direction as the whole ecosystem. And I'm pretty happy about it. And I'm happy to help Lido to keep moving towards this direction.
I think a paradox in all of this, and going back to like block space being fungible or not for some users, one type of users that definitely do not feel that block space is fungible, and funnily enough, are institutions. Institutions, they value a lot the Ethereum L1 because they care about like building on like a stack that's decentralized and is super resilient. And the end user, they actually they like to be on L2s. Is it a bit of like is it a bit weird that like the people that ends up benefiting like from like the Ethereum L1 were kind of like the people that like the Ethereum L1 was created to like avoid in a way?
Well, I don't think that Ethereum was created to avoid institutions on its own. I believe Ethereum was created as an alternative to a limited, closed systems, being an open, unlimited, uncensored system. So it lies in a bit of a different plane, I believe, than what people might think about institutions. And I believe that uh, it makes sense. Imagine how, like, if we will look at the distribution of people getting scammed, how many institutions or big players you've seen scammed? Well, there are probably some, because, and they probably hide the situations, but at most, I believe regular users are the one to get scammed, and not just in crypto, but in real life. So that's fair that institutions who hold significantly larger amounts of funds, of assets, they do care and they do deeply understand what is valuable and what is not, what is secure and what is not, what is more secure than the other one. And again, moving back to this evolution of Lido towards the requirements of the modern days, this Lido V3 upgrade, ST Volts, is specifically designed to basically merge two things together. Again, the best user experience for institutions on layer one, on a layer that is decentralized, that is secure, with the probably the most valuable block space that we can ever see anywhere, with the mission to keep Ethereum decentralized by being a part of Lido, not like a part of a core protocol, but built on top of technologies that back core protocol, maintaining this decentralization, allowing for usage of ST and so on and so forth. So I believe that it's my call to any institutions. If you guys really care, if you really value this block space as we personally think here, then Lido is arguably one of the best ways for you to stake, because you will keep this block space valuable. Because any significant investment, any significant stake done in an inappropriate way, done in a centralized way, will devalue this block space. So let's not devalue this block space. Let's keep this block space super robust, super secure, super decentralized by using correct technologies, by using appropriate technologies, by using Ethereum aligned technologies that on one hand give all of the cool features that you want, all of these things that you are looking for, while keeping Ethereum decentralized at the same time.
Maybe before we end this, like it's worth like reminding the audience like what is Lido V3 and like why it's a big deal.
Okay, yeah. So I quickly mentioned it at the beginning, but here's a quick overview. Lido, when we talk about Lido, most of you probably think, okay, Lido is a liquid staking protocol that accepts ETH, issues ST-ETH, stakes your ETH with a set of node operators. That's what we call core pool today. Lido ST Volts, or Lido V3, which with the main product being Lido ST Volts, is a thing that stands nearby the core protocol, which is connected to the core protocol, but it allows for a unique feature. In the core pool, in the core protocol, when you stake your ETH, you have no decision power regarding where this stake will go, to which node operator stake will go. This is a cool feature of a big pool where many people collect, deposit their funds and get together, and pool and the code of the protocol ensures that this stake is distributed in the most decentralized way. But for institutional players, for large players, it might be problematic from different perspectives that all of their stake is evenly distributed between multiple operators. And for example, they want to have their own silo where they can stake with a node operator. And one may say, okay, but they can go directly to the node operator, which is true. The missing part here is this magic connection between ST vaults and core pool. So unlike staking with a professional operator, you can now take your professional operator with you, deploy an ST vault, which is a permissionless operation. You don't need to ask for permission here. And while staking with your node operator, which meets the standards that you need, and we know that there are a lot of them on the market, so it's definitely good that we will see different players choosing different node operators. You also have the ability to mint STETH using ETH in the vault as a collateral. So on one hand, you have all of the benefits of staking with your beloved professional node operator. On top of that, you get the usability of the smart contracts, so you get them for free. You can use the smart contracts, they facilitate all of the interactions with these deposits to validators, withdrawals, and so on. And on top of it all, you can mint STETH and then use it in DeFi. If you don't want, like for example, today you are not in a STETH mood, do not mint it. Or repay the debt that you've minted before and live with your traditional setup. But should you tomorrow or next week be in a very DeFi mood, you can, with no additional hurdles, mint STETH and participate in DeFi. You can borrow stable coins against it. You can do leverage staking within your vault. You can get access to whatever strategy, whatever DeFi has to offer. You can do it while still having this absolutely secure, absolutely your relations with your professional node operator that absolutely fits you best. And the key to keeping decentralization here is that Lido DAO will have a decision power over only one thing, is the minting ratio for STETH. So the more STETH you are allowed to mint, the more appealing it is for you to create such a vault. And how this decision would be based? Well, it would be based on the portion that this particular professional node operator controls in overall ecosystem. So if, for example, you decide to create a vault with a node operator that is super large, well, unlucky for you, your minting ratio wouldn't be that high. But at the same time, you can look around, you can find the other node operator that is not well represented in the system while still meeting the same standards. I don't know, this SOC 2, whatever audits or standards you need. And for this node operator, Lido DAO will likely vote for a higher minting ratio, which means that you will be able to mint more, which means that you will be able to participate in DeFi more, get more leverage, get more opportunities. And that's the key. How can you combine the primitive that on one hand has nothing to do with decentralization? You add this ability to mint STETH, and by adjusting this ratio, you have an effective control over decentralization, which in total makes Lido I believe, the most advanced staking product on the market. Core pool, where you can just stake your ETH. No, you don't need to think about anything. This specific setups for pairs of depositor and node operator, or maybe like some cool strategies or whatsoever, and entry gate for node operators to validate Ethereum should they want to run hardware. So basically, in 2025, Lido is a protocol that has something to offer to any type of a user, from the very basic one to a techno geeks to a big institutions and professional operators. All of them can find what they need within Lido ecosystem.
This like mechanism like makes it maybe less appealing for professional validators, because like they can try to sell like Lido V3 staking like to their customers, but maybe if they're already too big, then like their customer will be like, yeah, okay, but like yeah, I'm not going to stake like that, because like I'm going to get like much less STETH, and maybe I want to put the STETH on Symbiotic, and that STETH will not be able to like have like have as much value as if like the if the person had stake like normally.
Yeah, there's always a bunch of factors. You can never create a solution, a one solution that fits them all. That's why I'm speaking about like multiple options. And yes, in some specific cases, creating a vault for a very large node operator might be not that favorable as creating a vault with a smaller node operator. At the same time, if you just stake with node operator with no staking protocol involved whatsoever, you have ability to mint 0 STETH or 0 other LSD. You have 0 access to DeFi. Yes, you can get access to incentives like DVT incentives or pre-confirmations incentives, but in the vaults, you can do all of that and get the ability to mint STETH on top. So even though, yes, it might be not like super appealing for the largest operators, but that's the idea of decentralization, right? You cannot favor largest players while still keeping decentralization. But what you can do is you can favor them all, but to a different degree. That's what we do in CSM. We offer the best conditions for the node operators, no matter if you are professional or home staker. But if you are home staker, you get slightly better conditions. And this is a situation when you are not selecting between good and bad. You are selecting between good and excellent. And the same applies for the vaults.
Makes sense. We're already a bit over time. Dmitry, is there anything you want to add for the audience?
Yes. First of all, I want to say thanks for inviting me. It's a huge pleasure. I haven't been on a podcast for, I believe, a year or so, maybe slightly less. I'm super happy about that. And what I want to tell to the audience is that, guys, we've discussed a very important topics today. We've discussed things like value of the block space. We've discussed things like value of decentralization. And we even discussed ways how can you affect all of them. So next time when you will do a transaction or when you will select what to do in crypto, ask yourself, do I know enough about this product, about this blockchain? And if the answer for you is no, or I'm not quite sure, spend just 1 hour of your time. That's not a lot, to learn more, to understand more. And by learning more, you will not just help ecosystem, but you will also help yourself to become more advanced, more educated. And as some say, the longer you learn, the longer you live. So never stop learning, always keep investigating, and let's keep Ethereum decentralized.
Great words. Great words. Thank you again for joining the podcast. I thought it was a really good conversation. Looking forward to have you on maybe like when, I don't know, CSM V3 or like V4 like comes out. I'll be curious to if it ever comes out, if it ever needs to come out. But yeah, I'll be curious to hear more from you and learn more from you. Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'll definitely keep you posted about the most advanced upgrades. And I have a spoiler, probably it wouldn't be CSM V3, but there is definitely much more to improve in light of Validator set. So stay tuned.
Nice.
Cool.
Take care.